like, oh, it's working. Keep going. And then, if you have bad days, you'll be like, whoa, because overall it's working. It's a very good lesson to learn. You want to build on success. Success breeds success. Mahavir is a mitzvah gereres mitzvah. It's mitzvah that woman. Even in a secular world, it's success. So, there's more things that are success. Shalom Facebook, so nice to see you. We are getting ready for Rosh Hashana this week and next week. What's your class next week? There's no reason why not. It's technically Erev Rosh Hashana, but Thursday night. Unless you're like cooking.
No, it's good for my wife to get out and go.
Okay. Take an hour break from cooking. Come learn and then go back into it. Okay. All right. Okay. So did we talk last time about where the 40 days of Elul and Kippur, where they fit into the Jewish timeline?
No.
Okay. So 40 days. What's 40 days? Where have you heard 40 days before?
Moses spent on Mount Sinai.
Right. And how many times have you gone on Sinai? Oh, I love it. Yeah. It's actually, she's right.
How 3 times you got only 2 loopholes?
Yeah. Oh, that's how you. I want you to know that I have asked this question to Frum people, go to the whole Frum. 85-90% of them say the same mistake you say. Right? It's just complete. It's so common. So don't feel bad. Right? You didn't grow up with this.
No, I told them. Yeah, but you went twice. You have 2 sets of loopholes.
So let me explain. So the first time, so you're talking about the first time and the third time, right? But you're forgetting that he went up a time in the middle to beg Hashem to not destroy the Jews when they made the golden calf.
I thought he was standing there. And
No. He went up for 40 days and 40 nights to beg for forgiveness.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's tough.
It's in the Chumash. It's very good.
So 40 nights, he's in yeshiva.
Right. He's learning Torah. He's getting the luchos. He's going to bring it down to the Jews.
He shows up.
They made the calf, made mass, breaks the tablets.
What does he do? He turns around.
Not yet. First he says, Mila Hashem Elai, whoever's for Hashem come to me. The tribe of Levi listens.
Yes.
And then they killed about 3,000 people that were involved in making the golden calf. He argued with Aaron a little bit, like what are you doing making the golden calf? Aaron said, oh, you're going to do it in the fire, and it just popped out. Which according to, I think there's a medrash that says that he wasn't making a story, but that's actually what happened. Because there's a famous story in the Midrashim that Moshe Rabbeinu, how did he get the bones of Yosef, which the Egyptians had put the Yosef bones in the Nile River, that no one would ever take them out. So Moshe Rabbeinu took a shard of pottery and he wrote on it, Ale Shor, rise ox, because Yosef was called the ox. And he threw the pottery in, and boom, his bones came out, so that he could take his bones and the other Shvatim bones back to Eretz Yisrael. And
the other Shvatim, the bones are back there.
In Egypt, of course. They only mention Yosef, but all of the Shvatim bones are
where they bury them?
Well, you have...
You definitely just several Yosef, but I've never heard of like several guys.
I don't remember off the top of my head where any of them are. Don't even know. That maybe. That would be a pretty cool way to do it. Yeah. Anyway, so apparently one of the Erev Rav, one of these mixed multitudes that caused all the problems for the Jews, they got the shard from the river, and when they put their gold into the fire for the golden calf, they threw the shard in the fire, and out popped the golden calf. That's one of the famous midrash. I think it's one of the famous stories of how it happened. So Aaron wasn't like, because you think about it, like, is Aaron going to lie? Maybe he's not lying. He's trying to just make it not whatever. But according to this story, no, it's literally true. Golden calf is enough. Okay, so which by the way kind of makes sense. How long does it take to beat gold into a statue? Probably takes more than an hour or two. That's all the time they have. Grab all the gold, put it all together, melt it, and you're going to make a whole statue out of it? Like, how long does it take? I don't know. Maybe they had super craftsmen, so everything was done that. But that seems to be what I would have expected. Okay. Anyway, back to our 40 days. So 40 days now. Now, after that, basically, Moshe goes back up, and Hashem is like, I'm just going to destroy the Jews and start start over with you. And Moshe's like, no, don't destroy it. And he begs for their forgiveness. And he learns the 13 attributes of mercy, right? All the sleepers, right? Right? And Hashem says, fine, I won't destroy the Jews. Wait a second. Now he comes back down, tells the Jews, you're not going to be destroyed. But it goes back up to get the Torah again, and to get the second set of the tablet. And the day he goes up in Rosh Chodesh Elul, he comes down on Yom Kippur. Right? Now, a couple of interesting, the main question that pops into my mind is like, wait a second. So when were the Jews forgiven? The 40 days before Elul. 40 days before Chodesh Elul, before Rosh Chodesh Elul. Those 40 days before that is when the Jews were forgiven for the sin of the golden calf. So then, why are the days from Elul until Yom Kippur called, the time of the great time of Teshuvah? Right? So I heard an answer. I thought about it a lot over the years, and the truth is that with many things in Judaism, there's more than one level to things. Just like Pesach is the holiday of freedom, but the rabbis say you can't have freedom without Torah. We didn't get Torah until Shavuos. So there's two levels of freedom, right? There's the lower level of freedom by Pesach, freedom from externality, and then there's the higher level of freedom of getting Torah, which is the freedom from your own Yetzer Hara. So too, the first 40 days, the forgiveness of the first 40 days is. I'll give you a marital analogy. Let's say you say something stupid, and your wife is upset. And you tell her, oh, I was so stupid, please forgive me. She says, all the time, of course. I know. And she says, I forgive you. But it's not the same as it was before we said that stupid thing. She's still, she's not punishing you. She's not reminding you. There's a little distance, a little cold shoulder. The food isn't warmed up as much. The cloth is a little cold. Right? So there's another level of forgiveness, which is not just, I'm not going to take it out on you, but forget it, like it never happened. Let's be fresh relationship. So that level, I believe, is what we call kapara. Kapara, atonement, is where we get this fresh slate, brand new start. It's almost like the relationship is being born again. Right? And so, Yom HaKippurim, Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. So the whole 40 days from Elul to Yom Kippur is really trying to achieve, of course, also the lower level of Teshuvah. We're not ignoring it, but we're trying to reach the highest level of Teshuvah possible, like to become again one with Hashem. It's almost like after the Jews made the golden calf, Hashem says, I won't destroy you, but get out of my house. And then the third 40 days, okay, fine, you can live with me again. You can be a family again. Right? Now, it wasn't a full 100% kapara, because the second set of tablets was made by Moshe, whereas the first set were carved by Hashem himself, and the second Torah wasn't on the level of the first Torah, and they didn't have the crowns that they wore the first Torah. But it was obviously a pretty good job, because we're able to now have a Torah and go through Jewish history and then try to get ourselves back to Gan Eden.
I always feel like Hashem has not fully forgiven us, because the irony is that when you daven at the Western Wall, when you look up, you see an iron dome, the golden dome.
Well,
I thought that's like,
it's not so much that he hasn't forgiven us. Of course he forgave us. That's the second set. It's that we haven't yet fully rebuilt the relationship. Hashem is only going to allow his home that he lives with us to be rebuilt, the Beis Hamikdash, when we have made ourselves worthy to live there. It's not that, listen, Hashem is ready at any second. Right? If we do the job, Rambam says that it doesn't have to be that miracles will happen in the end of days. Right? But it could be. It depends. Like the Gemara says, it depends on if we're worthy. There's a famous Gemara that says, Hashem, you should hasten the coming of Mashiach in its time. So it's a very weird phrase. If it's hasten, it's time. Then it's time. It's not hasten. The rabbis say, if you're worthy, Hashem will send it sooner. It'll be hasten. If you're not worthy, there's a final end day. There's a final moment that Hashem will not allow history to go past. And that's called its time. But if we're worthy, and not only worthy of Mashiach and the redemption coming earlier, but we would be worthy of miracles. And if we're not worthy, it'll come eventually, and maybe it'll happen naturally. We'll see. All I know is that looking at the world we live in now, if anyone can look at our time in the past, certainly 200 years, 150 years, and even more in the past 20, 30 years, the unbelievable acceleration of technology, of knowledge, of communication, of societal changes. This is what the rabbi said, Friday is crazy with Hashem. We're in Friday. This is the days the Mashiach is coming. So it's happening right in front of us. We're just, if you don't believe that Hashem exists, then you have to come up with an alternative series of answers. You're not willing to accept the other one. I see that, I see my favorite speaker on biology, and how you can show Hashem is the more likely answer to the universe. That would be Stephen Mayer, who wrote Designing DNA, Darwin's Black Box, and The Return of the God Hypothesis. 3 amazing books, all written by him. And I see him having discussions with people that are atheists, and he gives an argument, and I'm thinking, like, let me be as objective as I can be. Obviously, can't be fully objective, but I'm like, I think that's legitimately a really good argument. And then people just, no, not a good argument. What do you mean? Like, you're not even acknowledging that there's strength there. You're not even saying, like, oh, that's a really good question. Let me see if I come up with an answer. They just throw it out because they can't accept the conclusion that this question brings, right? And since they're unable to, they're forced to rely on something else. I heard Dr. Schroeder in Eish Torah. He said, sometimes you wonder who has more blind faith, the religious people or the atheists.
I just compared this line.
Okay. So this third 40 days, so Elul, all the way up until Yom Kippur, is ultimately about coming to the most loving, close relationship with Hashem possible. Now, obviously, that's true all year long, but this is the days where it's the easiest to grab on. As the rabbis give the analogy, especially for the 10 days from Yom Kippur, is that the rest of the year Hashem is in his palace, and it's hard to get through. You got to go through the officers, and have to know who to bribe and who to backdoor. But during this time, he's in the field. He's coming to visit us. You can see him and make your requests and throw yourself at his feet now more than any other time of the year. And I believe that's exactly why the rabbis say that the Roshei Tevos, the acronym for Elul, stands for Ani L'Doidi V'Doidi Li. I am for my beloved, and my beloved is for me. These 40 days are the closest that we can come in a loving relationship with Hashem that's possible. And it's especially powerful because the line Ani L'Doidi V'Doidi Li is coming for Shir Hashirim, the love song between Hashem and the Jewish people. That Rabbi Akiva says is Kadosh HaKadoshim, the holiest of all of the books of the Torah. So what are we supposed to be doing practically? So let's get practical. The most practical thing that we're supposed to be doing during Elul is getting ready for Rosh Hashana. Now, if you're getting ready for Rosh Hashana, you're also, by definition, going to be getting ready for Yom Kippur. Right? Because you need to have a good Rosh Hashana to have the best Yom Kippur. You can still have a good Yom Kippur if you have a bad Rosh Hashana. They're independent of each other. But if you want to have the best possible Yom Kippur, you have to have a good Rosh Hashana. Because it's a direct leader. Right? So what is the preparation that we're supposed to be doing during Elul for Rosh Hashana? So it depends, right? What is Rosh Hashana about? So we mentioned last week, we touched upon the idea that Rosh Hashana is divided into 3 components. Right? Memory, shofar, and making Hashem king. Now, the real main one is making Hashem king. The shofar is about waking you up, making Hashem king. Memory is about putting your conscious focus attention, that you should be making Hashem king. So what does it mean to make Hashem king? What's the simplest answer you could give? That's very good. That's excellent stuff. What are you going to say? So I love your answer. You're not in charge. And let's give you just a slightly different, like go 2 degrees to the left. Right? Same idea. The best analogy I ever heard, because you understand, what does it mean to be a king? What is a king? Both of those are not the Jewish understanding of the king. Well, let me be more precise. They're not the entirety of the Jewish understanding of the king. We know in Hebrew that there's a word for a ruler, a tyrant, a dictator, the one who has power. It's called a moshel. And it says, we said in davening, we said that Hashem is Moshel, Vagoyim. He's the ruler over all the world, all the nations of the world. He's only king to us, right? Hashem is only king for us, which means that shows you that king is something different than just the one who has the power and rules over you. So the king, and the rabbis say, Ein melech b'li am. You can't have a king without a people. Now, I think the rabbis are very smart. Do you agree? So if you look at the simple meaning, there's no king without a people. Duh. It sounds like a very super simplistic, stupid statement if you take it as just the face. Like, obviously there's no king without a people. You sit alone in a throne with a crown and a scepter by yourself with no one around. You're not a king. What are they trying to teach us that there's no king without a people? Ein melech b'li am. So I'm sure there are many answers, but the one that I heard that I like the most in this context is that it's not the fact that there are people, it's the fact that what makes him king is the people. The people make him king. He doesn't rule over them as king. The people choose him as king. I read in one of Rabbi Jonathan Sachs' Zatzal, one of his essays, he talked about the idea that kingship in Judaism is really about governed by consent of the governed. This idea is very ancient, that the Jews really believe that to be the best king possible it can only be if the people chose you to be king. Because if I didn't choose you to be my leader, to be my ruler, to tell me what to do, if I'm only doing it because I'm afraid of you, I'm not going to have my whole heart in it. I'm not going to have my whole passion in it. I'm going to do the bare minimum. I'm going to try to find a loophole. It's going to be like everyone working in the Soviet Union. It's just fear and
democratically elected.
Not exactly. It's not a voting process, right? But it is the idea that we make it happen. Right? And so the best analogy / illustration that I ever saw, that one of my rabbis gave, I absolutely love it. Who is the most important person at a symphony orchestra?
Well, he's the conductor.
Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
Right. So, what instrument does he play?
No. Holding his stick.
He's holding his stick. I was saying this to somebody recently. They said, as far as I know, he's just randomly zooming his stick. It's like, okay, because you don't know what he's doing, right? But what's the purpose of the conductor? Draw together all of the music to make the symphony. Okay? That's the same thing with a king. A king is the conductor of the people. He's the one who takes the strengths and abilities and talents and skills and also watches out for the weaknesses of the people, brings them together, and creates the greatness of the people. But that could only work if he's voluntarily accepted his authority. You can't be a good conductor if they don't want you. Right? You're going to be, okay, yeah, I'm watching you, I'm listening to you, I'm obeying you. Not because I'm afraid of you, but because I know that you're good at what you're doing, and we're on the same team, and you want the best for me, because the best for me is the best for everyone, is the best for you too. Right? And so the Jewish king, whether it's King David or Hashem as king, it's the same thing. And by the way, just reminding myself, King David is an unbelievable example of this. He's the paradigm of the Jewish king. Did you know that King David was supposed to die when he was born? Have you ever heard this before?
I've heard that Adam gave up upon
70 years, they say, yeah. Because, we know Adam was supposed to live 1,000 years, but we see he died at 930. He wasn't even the longest lived. Methuselah lived for 969 years. So why was Adam, the first man, only lived 930? So the story is, I think it's also in Midrash, that Adam was shown by Hashem all of the great human beings who had ever lived. These are all people who are going to come out of you. And he saw this incredible soul of King David who died when he was born. He says, look at this guy. He says, he doesn't have any time. He says, but he's such a great soul. Hashem's like, yeah. He takes some of my years? Sure. I'll give him 70. Okay. Now, what does that mean? It's an incredible story because Adam was all of humanity. He's what's called Neshama Klali. He's a encompassing soul.
Right.
So that means David is also. That means David doesn't even exist for himself. He only exists for Adam. Now, at that point in history, Adam means the Jewish people. So David's entire existence is only for the service of the Jewish people. And that's the paradigm of the king. The king is not there for himself. He's there to serve the people. Same with a conductor. A good conductor knows, it's not about his ego at all. He gets his ego out of the way and just draws the music. He doesn't even play an instrument. Okay? And so that's what Hashem will do for us, as He is Melech. Right? And eventually, after the redemption, He'll be Melech al Kol Ha'amim. And then He will be king over all the people. Because all the peoples of the world will say, we learned from the Jews how to make Hashem king. So then He'll be king for them too, eventually. Right? We're not there yet. And so now that's the philosophical idea, but now let's make it super practical. So super practically speaking, that means, number one, I acknowledge that Hashem is the creator, that He created me with a purpose that is based on a foundation of love, and everything that He wants from me is the best for me. And therefore, my job, when I say I make Hashem king, that means I want to really internalize, I want to obey what you're telling me. Not because I'm afraid of you. People think Rosh Hashana and Kippur is about fear. It's not about fear. It's about love. Now, it's true, the rabbis say, that we rejoice while we tremble. We don't tremble because of the fear, like we're afraid of God. We're never supposed to be afraid of God in that way. We tremble because we recognize how unbelievably important and consequential these days are. That's a pretty worthy thing to tremble. If you were standing on the edge of a cliff, you might tremble also. If I make one wrong move, something really bad can happen. Or if you have an amazing business deal, you might make $1 million tomorrow, you might be trembling. Oh, I hope it goes through, this amazing thing that I want. So whether it's good or bad, if there's big consequences on the line, the natural human reaction is trembling. And that's where the word charedi comes from, right? Those who tremble. Right? They tremble before Hashem. In other words, people that take life seriously. That's what it really means. Quakers also, that's what Quakers, right? The Haredim are the Jewish Quakers. Right? They quake and they shake because life is important, life is real. It's not a joke, it's not a game. Okay. So how do we do that? So now we've got a pretty straightforward concept. So most practically, so I heard from Yitzchak Berkowitz that now this is true all year long, but it's most especially true. We have 9 days left until, right? Nine working days left. Well, not even all working days. Shabbos and Yom. We have 9 days until Rosh Hashana, which is, it's not all of Elul, but it's still 9 days. It's over a week. It's a nice amount of time to get some good work done. And says that the most important work you could do all year long, but especially during this time, is Cheshbon HaNefesh, right? Counting for the soul. I think we may have talked about Cheshbon HaNefesh in the past, but it's worth going over now. Okay, perfect. So we could spend 10 minutes or so and get like a nice solid grasp on what this Cheshbon HaNefesh is. So now, the general idea of Cheshbon HaNefesh is Rav Noah Feinberg, the original Rosh Hashiva of Eish Torah. It's one of the 48 ways to wisdom. Is an amazing chapter. He says you need to treat your life like a business. Anyone who runs a business and doesn't know what their profit margin is, what they have in stock, what they have in the bank, who their workers are, what they're doing, what their business all that. Someone who's a good business person, they know every detail of their business. You go into a store, you ask the guy, he'll tell you, there, behind this, under that, the third one, not the one on the left, which is right. They know everything because you need to. Right? There's no choice. If you're not keeping very careful track of the business, you're not going to make a lot of money, or you may not succeed at all. But that says that you should be at least like that with your own life. Do you know where you're going? Do you know how to get there? Do you know what's stopping you? Do you know where you're supposed to go at all? That's Cheshbon HaNefesh as a general rule. So Berkowitz, he breaks it down into 3 parts. Cheshbon 1, Cheshbon 2, Cheshbon 3. The first Cheshbon is you need to have a vision for what kind of person you want to be. Now that's of course going to be based on what you think Hashem created you for. So you have to understand your purpose in life. And vision means, and this is, he talks about, you have to use your imagination. You have to sit and use your holy imagination to look. And by the way, we see this, what do the rabbis say? Every day, what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to ask ourselves, when will I be like the forefathers and the foremothers? Yep. Every day. Okay? Now, why? Because they provide for us a role model, a vision of what the greatest human beings look like. And so we can try to create, now I'm not really expecting to become like Abraham Avinu between this Rosh Hashana and the next one, right? But at least it gives me like, wow, okay, so what can I try to realistically create as a vision for myself? As I like to joke, I said, do it like the Soviets did it, except without the 100 million deaths. 5-year plan, right? Make a 5-year plan. I have a vision, a 5-year vision, really. What could I imagine? Now, some people can't imagine that far ahead, and you're never going to be 100% accurate. You make it 3 years, make it 2 years, but wherever you can kind of find that balance of it's not fantasy, it's something that I really feel that it's even if it's remote. Like imagine if I wasn't lazy and I had nothing holding me back and I put in my maximum effort every day, where could I be in 5 years? Okay, now scale that back because you're probably not going to be that perfect for 5 years, but at least you have an ultimate idea, and then you work your way back. 5-year vision, a 2-year vision, a 1-year vision, and then once that's all step one. Step one is to create the vision. Step two is to create the goals. The goals are the practical stages to try to arrive at your vision. So if part of my vision of myself, let's say my 5-year vision, let's say, the 5-year vision is I want to have been through, let's say, half of Shas. I start Daf Yomi, I'll do for sure half of Shas, right? Half of Shas, I want to be able to lane every parsha in the Chumash, that if somebody, we don't have someone to lane, who can lane? No problem, we're going to come and do it. And just throw at those two things for argument's sake. Part of it, because my vision of myself in the future would be, I want to be at least approaching some sort of Torah scholarship. Right? So now practically, what could I do in the next year? Okay, well, let's say by 1 year from now, by next Rosh Hashana, where would I want to be? I want to be where every single day I have time set aside, religiously time set aside to lane that week's parsha. I'm not expecting to lane the entire parsha every week, but I do expect to have dedicated time every day that I'm practicing laning of that week's parsha. So that if I do that, as my skills improve and I get faster and faster, that means by 5 years from now, I'll for sure be able to lane the whole Torah. And okay, do I expect to now all of a sudden, start to learn a tremendous amount of Talmud every day? No. But maybe this year I could start Daf Yomi. Even if I can't, maybe that's too much for me. Maybe I can find there's a really good YouTube channel, a rabbi who goes through the daf of the day in 15 minutes. Right? Let me just start by listening to his video, watching his video. Yeah?
No, there's the guy who does 8-man daf.
Oh, wow.
It's still Mr. Function.
Okay. And if you start with him. Look, can you imagine just if every day you're getting an entire daf, even though, okay, of course you don't have clarity, of course you don't have the argument back and forth, but you're being exposed by a Talmud Chacham to real Torah, a real Gemara every single day. And so if I could make it my habit between this Rosh Hashanah, next Rosh Hashanah, that I do Daf Yomi at least like that. Maybe in the second year I could do the 15-minute video. Maybe in the third year I can go to a Daf Yomi shir every day. And guess what? That means 5 years I'm not going to have even half, but maybe I'll have a quarter. Maybe 7 years I'll have half. Like the real practical goals that you can now, both in vision and in goals, these are not set in stone. As you live, you say, I could do more. Or, that was way too ambitious. Or, I don't even know if I want to do that at all. I want to change in a different direction. So you're allowed to adjust. You're allowed to adjust, of course. You shouldn't adjust too frequently because then you won't be able to do anything. Probably, have you ever heard that have you ever heard of Yom Kippur Katan? Every month, we have something called Yom Kippur Katan, like a mini Yom Kippur every month. So what that tells me, this is my own personal thought, take it or leave it, ask other rabbis who know much more than me. I think that means that you can examine your vision once a month, but not more frequently.
What date is it?
By Rosh Chodesh.
Oh, Rosh Chodesh is Yom Kippur Katan, that's what they call it?
It's also. And so if you once a month to go, how's my vision going, but not more frequently than that, because then you'll be paralyzed, you'll never be able to do anything. And even that's not necessary for everyone. You could do it at least by Rosh Hashana. At least now, Elul, Rosh Hashana, look at your vision for your life and for the year. That's for sure what you have to do. Does it have to be more frequent than that? I don't think so. And certainly not more frequently than once a month, as far as I can tell. Take it or leave it for a thought process. So the third, the Cheshbon 3 is, now that you have your vision, and now that you have your goals, you have to set aside religiously, like life or death, as much as you can, set aside times to review how your goal has been done in the last period of time. Ideally, daily. But it's, Rav Berkowitz said, you want to hear one of the craziest things I ever heard? I heard him say this. I heard Rav Berkowitz say the following. He says, if you have a person learning Torah, doing mitzvahs, chesed, all day long, but they're not like religiously setting aside a time to do cheshbon and nefesh, the Yetzer Hara, the Satan, doesn't feel they're a threat. Doesn't care about them. Because the only thing that matters is, are you growing? Are you becoming the best person that you can be? I heard a great line today from a non-Jew who's crazy, but he's got a great sense of understanding of some of these things intrinsically. You ever heard of David Goggins? He's a Navy SEAL.
Or the guy who like takes his body to extreme.
Yes, 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 yes. And he said, I heard it today, I heard of it in an interview he had with somebody. He said, the way I look at it is, the purpose of your life is you. Meaning that the reason you're here is to become the greatest you could possibly be. And that's such a beautiful idea, right? So you can't do that. Obviously, you need hard work, that's clear. But everyone knows that. But the Berkowitz is pointing out that you can't do it unless you're measuring your progress. And the only way, as they say in Silicon Valley, if you cannot measure it, you cannot grow it or manage it. We're leaving right now. If you want to take me for a couple minutes, I don't know. I'm finishing up right now. Okay, so vision, goals, regular. So once a week is probably something that's realistically possible for most of us. So either before Shabbos or after Shabbos, to take 10, 15 minutes, set aside a time once a week to go, how did my goals for this week go? And what are my goals for next week? And the goals are towards the bigger goals, and that's towards the vision. Okay? Facebook, thank you. A pleasure. See you guys next week, and just before Rosh Hashana.